No way. How can someone as incompetent as you be here? Boarding on the same plane means your incompetence might rub off on me. Sophie shouted loudly on the plane. How rude, but I didn't want to cause a scene on the plane. Oh, what a coincidence. I replied calmly, but in my mind, I was furious at Sophie's words. My trip is completely ruined because I ran into you, Michelle said as she sat down on her seat. As usual, Sophie and Michelle's words were really harsh. However, this was the last time they would say such rude things to me. My name is Alex, and I'm 30 years old. I was always a frail kid from the time I was little and was often hospitalized. I was also a very shy and quiet kid. My parents took good care of me without a single look of disgust. Whenever I got a fever, no matter how late it was, they would take me to the hospital, and they always stayed with me when I was admitted. I loved my parents dearly. I always wanted to take care of them in the future with much gratitude. That's why I decided to pursue a stable career in healthcare. I studied hard and got into a nursing program at a prestigious medical school. My parents cried tears of joy when I was accepted. I was so happy to see them so proud. Thus began my college life at the medical school. I found nursing studies fascinating and threw myself into my studies. Although my studies were very demanding, my parents supported me wholeheartedly. Thanks to their support, I was able to focus on my studies in college. I can't thank them enough. I thought those days would last forever. But reality was not that easy. It happened so suddenly. In my third year of the medical school, my parents died in an accident. It was hopeless. With my parents gone, I wondered what I was going to do with my life. I questioned myself every day. They left me enough inheritance to graduate from the medical school. However, I was in no mental state to continue my nursing studies. So, I decided to drop out of the school. When I told my classmates, they looked at me with disdain. What? Dropping out of college is unthinkable, Sophie said coldly to me. Everyone else agreed with her. But only my classmate and best friend Jake was kind to me. Losing both parents at once is tough. I'm here for you, Alex. I was saved by Jake's words. 9 years have passed since then. Now, I have a job and live a busy yet fulfilling life. One day, I received a call from Jake. Jake and I kept in touch regularly even after I dropped out of the college. We occasionally went out for drinks and even traveled together. But we hadn't contacted each other lately due to our busy schedules. I was excited to hear from Jake after a long time. Hey, there's a reunion for our medical school classmates to celebrate that we are turning 30. Do you want to come, Alex? I was surprised by Jake's words. I didn't graduate from the school, so I don't have the right to go. When I said this skeptically, Jake laughed. No worries. Some classmates want to see you, so you should come too. There's no way any of my classmates want to see me. They all looked at me with disdain when I announced I was dropping out. I wasn't keen on attending the reunion. But since Jake was enthusiastic, I reluctantly agreed to go. Alright, I'll join. After hanging up, I sighed. On the day of the reunion, I arranged to meet Jake at a nearby cafe so we could go together. When I arrived at the cafe, Jake was already sitting inside. Hey! Long time no see. Jake looked as energetic as ever. Yeah, it's been about a year, right? Yeah. Got a girlfriend yet? You should find a good wife soon. Jake got married 2 years ago and is now a father of one. His occasional messages were mostly about his wife and child. I still didn't have a girlfriend, let alone a wife. It's not that I don't want one, but I'm so focused on work that I haven't had the chance to meet anyone. But someday, I hope to have a family of my own to care for. How's your work? We're swamped over here because we're short-staffed. Jake sighed as he spoke. Jake worked as a nurse at a university hospital. He said nurses were in short supply. Work is going all right. Why don't you come work at our hospital, Alex? Jake joked, laughing. I laughed off his suggestion. It's about time. Shall we go? At Jake's signal, we stood up and headed to the venue. My steps felt heavy. The reunion was held at a fancy restaurant in a hotel. On that day, They were going to rent out a restaurant and have a party to celebrate our entering 30s. A sparkling chandelier hung in the restaurant, adding to its luxurious atmosphere. The tables were lined with delicious-looking dishes. The restaurant was already bustling with many of our classmates. Jake and I entered the restaurant. As soon as the classmates saw Jake, they approached us. "Jake. Long time no see." "Yeah, it's been a while." They didn't even glance at me. Maybe I didn't belong here. I was about to leave. But then, the classmates talking to Jake noticed me and looked surprised. "Alex. Is that you, Alex?" They cheerfully called out to me. Then, with serious expressions, they said, "We wanted to apologize. When you told us you were dropping out, we treated you badly." "We're sorry," they said, apologized deeply. "It's okay. I knew I'd be looked down on for dropping out while everyone else was working hard. Will you forgive us?" "Thank you. Let's drink tonight." My classmates had actually cared about me. I felt truly glad to have come here. Jake saw my relieved smile and grinned. However, this feeling didn't last long. A familiar voice came from behind. "Why are you apologizing to someone like this guy? There's no need to apologize to an incompetent person." It was Sophie, the last person I wanted to see. Sophie looked down on me, calling me incompetent. This was way too much. I wanted to talk back, but I didn't want to engage with Sophie. "Hey! Calling someone incompetent is rude." Jake spoke up for me, angrily confronting Sophie. But Sophie just laughed mockingly. "Oh, I'm just telling the truth, right? He dropped out of the college, so he's useless," she said, glaring at me. Michelle, agreeing with Sophie, added, "Sophie's right. And why is someone who didn't graduate here? Just leave." She raised her voice. All eyes in the restaurant turned toward us. "Come on, let's keep it civil. We're here to have a good time." One of our classmates tried to defuse the situation, and Sophie and Michelle glared at me before moving away. "Don't let what those two said bother you. They're just frustrated because their personal lives aren't going well." But their words were too harsh anyway. Jake and my classmates tried to comfort me. According to them, Sophie and Michelle were both single, participating in dating events but currently without boyfriends. They were also busy with work, unable to take breaks, which added to their frustration. Still, taking their frustrations out on me was unreasonable. I couldn't shake my discomfort. Feeling hungry, I decided to grab some food from the buffet. As I was transferring food to my plate, a woman bumped into me. "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay?" She looked at me with concern. "No problem, just a light bump, I'm fine." When I said this, she stared intently at my face. "Oh. Alex." Her voice suddenly became excited. Yes?" As I said so, she smiled. I looked at the woman's face, wondering. Then I remembered. "It's Emma. I was the clumsy one in college who always needed your help, remember?" That's right, it was Emma. Back in college, Emma was always tripping over nothing or dropping things. I was so worried about Emma that I often helped her when I saw her. Now, she seemed like a very composed woman. "It's great to see you again. I was really sad when you left college." Emma looked nostalgic and a bit sad. "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye properly when I left," I said, and Emma smiled and replied. "It's been tough for you." "Thank you for all your help during college," Emma said. Then, I heard those annoying voices behind me again. Oh my, what a cute couple we have here. Seriously. Emma looked down. I was fed up with Sophie and Michelle's condescending attitudes. Before I knew it, I had grabbed Emma's arm and led her out of the venue. I sat Emma down on a bench outside the restaurant. Then, she spoke up. "I dropped out in my 4th year of college. I wondered why she would do that after working so hard. Seeing my parents take care of my grandmother, I wanted to be able to help people in need of care too. So I enrolled in a vocational school for caregiving and now work as a caregiver." "Wow, that's incredible. You as a caregiver? That's so cool." Emma, pursuing her own path, looked radiant to me. Sophie and Michelle call me useless too. But I don't regret becoming a caregiver. So Sophie and Michelle looked down on not just me, but Emma as well. I was filled with disbelief. Don't worry about what others say. Have confidence in yourself. You're amazing, Emma. I tried to comfort her. Emma nodded yes while tears welling up. Emma and I then moved to a nearby bar and talked about what we were doing after dropping out of college. The time flew by, and I could forget about the harsh words from Sophie and Michelle. Before parting ways, Emma and I exchanged contact information. I felt a warm light in my heart. Since then, a few months passed. Emma and I kept in touch and met frequently. Eventually, we started dating. From the moment I met Emma again at the party, I was in love with her. I admired how she followed her own path, and I wanted to be with her always. When I confessed my feelings, Emma said she felt the same. When I told Jake, he was surprised but genuinely happy for me. I felt truly blessed to have such a good friend. Though we were in a long-distance relationship, Emma and I communicated every night. And we decided to take a week off work starting today to go on a vacation overseas. It was the first time we'd spend such a long time together. I had been looking forward to this day. Alex, it's like a dream come true to be traveling with you, Emma said, smiling. I'm so happy to be traveling with you, too, I replied. I was excited about our first trip alone together. When it was time to board, Emma and I went into the plane. However, there we ended up meeting the last people we wanted to see. Our seats were in business class. I had splurged for our first overseas trip together. We settled into our seats. Then, we heard voices from the front. No way. Why are you here? Boarding on the same plane means your incompetence might rub off on me. I can't believe it. I couldn't believe my ears. It was Sophie and Michelle. A chance encounter with them on such a special trip. I cursed my bad luck. Sophie and Michelle were as rude as ever. I was extremely annoyed, but I didn't want to cause a scene on the plane. So I simply replied calmly, "Oh, what a coincidence." Michelle glared at me and said loudly, "My trip is completely ruined because I ran into you." I thought the same about them but ignored her. Emma looked at me with concern. Spending 7 hours on this flight near these two felt like a nightmare. As I was filled with despair, Emma whispered in my ear, "Let's just ignore them." Emma held my hand as she said that. Her touch helped ease my anger towards the two of them. Then the plane took off. Emma watched the receding land with excitement. 30 minutes after takeoff, the seatbelt sign turned off and drinks were served. Emma and I toasted with wine. Meanwhile, Sophie and Michelle were drinking more and more. Despite being on a plane, they were still making a bang. What a nuisance. I couldn't believe it. Michelle, wobbling from too much alcohol, got up to go to the bathroom. A few minutes later, she returned to her seat, looking very unwell. Just as she was about to sit down, she collapsed in front of her seat. I watched from my seat, thinking it was just from drinking too much. But then Sophie screamed, "No! Michelle, come on! Stay with me!" A flight attendant, hearing the scream, hurried over to Sophie. Then, the flight attendant panicked but said in a loud voice, "Is there any doctor on board?" The plane was in turmoil. And there seemed to be no doctor on board. Emma signaled to me with her eyes. I raised my hand and said, "I'm coming," and went to Michelle. Sophie looked shocked when she saw me. "What? You're not a doctor. Get out of the way and go back to your seat." I sighed and replied, "I am a doctor." "What?" But Sophie didn't seem to believe me. I didn't have time to deal with her. I needed to save Michelle immediately. I checked Michelle's condition. She wasn't breathing. Loosen her clothes quickly. Why should I follow your lead? Despite Michelle's condition, Sophie did nothing. I had the flight attendant help loosen Michelle's clothes. Then I began CPR. This looks like a heart attack. We need to land at the nearest airport immediately. Time is critical. I instructed the flight attendant. The flight attendant hurriedly contacted to the cockpit. 5 minutes after starting CPR, Michelle's pulse faintly returned. Sophie, who had been watching, asked me the same question again. Are you really a doctor? I was exasperated by her question at such a time. So I answered loudly and clearly. Yes, I am. I'm a heart surgeon. Seeing me act decisively, Sophie started to believe I was a doctor. Yes, I am currently a heart surgeon in another country. Even before my parents passed away, I had wanted to become a heart surgeon. However, the nursing program at the medical school I attended didn't offer the specialized training I needed. I talked to my parents about it. Follow the path you want. They encouraged me. So I decided to leave the medical school. Just then, the accident happened to my parents. They had left me a significant inheritance to ensure I could live freely. I believed that even in heaven, my parents would want me to pursue what I loved. So I decided to study cardiology abroad. I graduated from the medical school in another country and became a heart surgeon. So my living base at that time was not in the US. Every day was busy but fulfilling as a doctor. My parents, watching over me from heaven, would surely be proud of me now. However, I had only told a few people, like Jake and some relatives, about my career. This was because some people judge others by their occupation. People often said it was impressive to be a heart surgeon, but I didn't want to be valued just for my profession. I wanted people to see me for who I was on the inside. That was why I kept it to myself. But I was honest with Emma. I wanted her to know everything about me. Even after learning that I was a heart surgeon, Emma treated me no differently. I was glad I had told her the truth. The plane landed at the nearest airport. Fortunately, the airport was nearby, and we could land quickly. It was a silver lining. Michelle was immediately taken off the plane and transported by the waiting ambulance. For now, Michelle would be okay. I felt a deep sense of relief. Then Emma, standing next to me, began to cry. I'm so glad Michelle is safe. Even after being treated so poorly, Emma felt genuinely happy for Michelle. She really was a kind woman. I found myself even more drawn to her. Then Sophie approached to us. I was exhausted and didn't want to hear any more of Sophie's snide remarks. So I tried to pull Emma away from the scene. But Sophie kept following us. What on earth did she want? I stopped and turned to face Sophie. Sophie raised her voice to us. Thank you for saving Michelle today. I'm sorry for all the nasty things I said to you, Alex. Sophie apologized deeply. Emma approached Sophie and looked into her face. I'm really glad Michelle is okay. Everyone makes mistakes, and you can always start over, she said. Sophie began to cry, and Emma hugged her. I've always dreamed of becoming a nurse since I was little. So I worked hard in my nursing studies. But the job was much harsher than I expected. And it wasn't what I had imagined. Sophie confessed. Both Emma and I listened quietly to Sophie's story. Maybe I was jealous of you too for pursuing the paths you love. I'm truly sorry. I was so foolish, Sophie admitted. Seeing Sophie's honesty, my irritation faded away. I'm not one to dwell on the past. Let's forget about it. What matters is from now on, I said. Sophie's face brightened up. Thank you so much. Emma watched our conversation with a happy smile. A few hours later, Emma and I boarded an alternate flight for our vacation trip. We both felt incredibly cheerful. About an hour into the flight, I sat in my seat, feeling nervous. Just then, an announcement from the pilot echoed through the cabin. We have a special announcement. There's a man here who wants to propose to his beloved one. The passengers buzzed with excitement. How romantic. That's wonderful, Emma said, looking at me excitedly. I held Emma's hand. In fact, I had planned this proposal even before our trip. I knew Emma was a romantic. That's why I wanted to propose in a romantic way. So, though it took a lot of courage, I decided to propose on the plane. I had coordinated with the airline in advance to make the arrangements. Please give your warm support as he makes his proposal, the pilot continued. Then I stood up and took a ring out of my pocket. Then I put my knees on the floor and looked up at Emma. Emma covered her mouth with her hands, looking at me. Emma, I know I'm like this, but I want to be with you forever. Will you marry me? All the passengers were watching us intently. Emma, blushing, looked at me. Will she say yes? I felt nervous. Then Emma, teary-eyed, said, yes. I'd be delighted. She took the ring. I couldn't help but embraced her. The surrounding passengers cheered and congratulated us. And so, we became officially engaged. We enjoyed our time together on the vacation. After the trip, I had to return to my job in another country. The joyous time flew by. After the trip, I reluctantly returned to work out of country. Later, I was informed that thanks to the precise emergency resuscitation, Michelle was able to be discharged from the hospital immediately. I got a message from Michelle apologizing and thanking me. I was truly glad Michelle survived. Sophie, I heard, quit nursing and started studying nail art. She told everyone that it was thanks to me that she could follow her desired path. Emma told me that she had been spending more time with Sophie and Michelle, growing closer as friends. Emma happily told me about it. Time passed, and a year went by. How do you like being back in DC? Jet lag is tough, but I still love DC. Jake grinned at me. It's because Emma is here with you, right? I felt my face turn red. I decided to quit my job out of country and work at Jake's hospital. Sorry to keep you waiting. I was looking at baby clothes with Michelle and lost track of time. That's because Sophie wanted to buy everything. Sophie and Michelle cheerfully entered the cafe. How's the baby doing? Great. And it's a girl. Sophie, Michelle, and Jake exchanged happy looks. Yes, Emma and I got married right after returning from our vacation trip. And now, Emma is carrying our child. That's why I decided to move back to DC. Alex, you're finally going to be a dad. And a girl, no less. Unbelievable. Jake smiled at me. It's all thanks to you inviting me to the party to celebrate our entering 30s. Just then, Emma came in late. Sorry, I'm late. Everyone burst into laughter seeing Emma all sweaty. I look forward to enjoying my one and only life surrounded by the people I love. At a lively reunion with 100 attendees, I was enjoying chatting with my old classmates. Then, Michael, who claims to be an elite manager, showed up. He looked at me and snorted. I'm a manager at a top-ranking company. You're nothing compared to me. In front of everyone, he looked down on me. Michael has always seemed to think he's better than me. Thanks to him, the fun reunion was ruined. But right after that, Michael faced a rude awakening. My name is Kevin, and I'm 30 years old. I currently work at a top company in the sales department, and I'm busy every day. People who knew me in the past might be surprised to see how much I've changed. That's because I used to be timid and quiet, and was unable to stand up to anyone. There was a reason for that. Before I was old enough to remember, my mother passed away. So, my father raised me by himself. However, since he was busy with work, my grandmother mostly took care of me. She did her best to look after me and showered me with love. Thanks to her, I never felt the loneliness of not having a mother. One day, there was a parents' day at elementary school. Naturally, my grandmother came to see me. When she saw me in the classroom, she waved with a big smile. A few classmates saw this and laughed out loud. Your mom's not here, huh? Poor kid. Other classmates looked at me with pity. It was the first time I'd been called poor, and I couldn't hide my shock. They also made fun of my clothes, saying, "You're wearing those because you don't have a mom, huh? You're so lame." I couldn't express the feeling in words. From then on, I gradually became quiet and more withdrawn. Some classmates continued to make fun of me. I couldn't understand why I had to go through this just because my mother wasn't around. But most of my classmates stood up for me, so I was able to enjoy elementary school. After graduating elementary school and moving on to junior high and high school, I started to feel the need to change my personality. I didn't want to be teased for the rest of my life. I absolutely didn't want to live that kind of life. So, I began to actively join groups of friends and socialize. I also worked hard at my studies, which I wasn't good at. Gradually, I became more outgoing. After that, no one teased me anymore. After graduating from high school, I got a job at my current company. I considered going to college, but with my father's salary, it was difficult, so I gave up. Job hunting with just a high school diploma was tough, and I was rejected by many companies at the application stage. But I didn't give up and eventually got an offer from my current company. I worked with the intention of dedicating my life to the company that hired me. Fortunately, neither my colleagues nor my superiors looked down on me for only having a high school diploma, so I was able to focus on my work. I was grateful for that environment every day. 2 years after starting my job, I attended my coming-of-age ceremony. My grandmother bought me a fine suit for the occasion. "Kevin, you look great. I can't believe my little, weak grandson has grown up so much. I'm so happy." She said so with tears of joy. I was deeply moved as well. I vowed to become the kind of person who could repay my grandmother for all she had done for me. Entering the large venue for the coming-of-age ceremony, I saw it was filled with new working adults in formal attire. I scanned the area for any familiar faces and soon a few classmates approached me. They were my classmates from elementary school. My heart raced with excitement at seeing them after such a long time. But then, I saw the person I least wanted to encounter. That person was walking straight towards me. I instinctively looked down. "Kevin. Long time no see." It was Michael, my classmate from elementary school. He placed his hand on my shoulder as he spoke. I flinched by reflex. Seeing my reaction, Michael started laughing. "You're still as timid and weak as ever. So, which college are you attending? Whose fault do you think it is that I'm like this?" I felt a bit of anger but answered honestly. "I'm not in college. I'm working now." When I said that, Michael laughed even harder. "Not in college? I knew you were useless. Who doesn't go to college these days?" Hearing Michael's words, the other classmates fell silent, treating a classmate he hadn't seen in years as worthless. Michael's character was still rotten. But I was used to this from Michael. He had teased me relentlessly in elementary school. Yes, the one who led the teasing back then was Michael. Michael would constantly target me, making degrading comments about my poverty. His family was wealthy, and he couldn't believe that I was being raised by my grandmother. At first, I ignored him, but then an incident happened that made it impossible to ignore him. It was during a recess at elementary school. Suddenly, Michael started shouting that his wallet was missing. Bringing wallets to school was against the rules. So none of us, including me, even knew he had brought one. But Michael claimed someone had stolen it. The thief is someone in this classroom. Then, unbelievably, he accused a classmate of being the thief. The classroom fell silent. And from that moment, my nightmare began. Suddenly, Michael grabbed my backpack and turned it upside down. I was stunned by his action. "Michael! What are you doing? Stop it." Despite my protests, Michael didn't stop. He emptied my backpack and started going through my desk. "The only one poor enough to steal my wallet is you. Give it back." I hadn't taken Michael's wallet. I couldn't understand why I was being accused and felt utterly confused. Hearing the commotion, the teachers came into the classroom. After we explained the situation, they urged Michael to look elsewhere. But Michael insisted. "Kevin stole my wallet. He hates that I'm rich." What a thing to say. I had never envied Michael. Who would want to be like someone so rotten? I remember feeling my body heat up with anger. But in the next moment, Michael found his wallet inside his own desk. Everyone around widened their eyes with surprise. Despite having accused me of stealing, Michael laughed as if nothing had happened. "There it is. Thank goodness. I almost got in trouble with my mom for losing my wallet. What was there to be thankful for? I had almost been falsely accused of theft. But Michael didn't care about my feelings and didn't even apologize." Seeing this, the teacher asked him to apologize to me, but Michael uttered something shocking. "Kevin is poor, that's why he was suspected. It's not my fault. It's Kevin's fault for being poor and motherless." I couldn't believe my ears. Why did I have to hear such things from Michael? I decided to avoid him as much as possible from then on. At that moment, I made a vow to myself. However, since we were in the same class, Michael continued to bother me. Each time, it was a miserable experience. After graduating from elementary school, I thought I was finally free from Michael. But running into him again at the coming-of-age ceremony was really unfortunate. As I remained silent, my classmates tried to help me out. Working instead of going to college is impressive. Hearing this, Michael snorted. What's so impressive about that? He probably just didn't want to study. Unlike you, I'm studying business at a top university. Shows how much smarter I am than you. I wanted to get away from Michael as quickly as possible, so I decided to just listen to him without reacting. A top university? That's impressive, Michael. But deep down, I didn't mean it at all. My classmates seemed to understand my true feelings and started to ignore Michael's boasting as well. Michael, satisfied with his bragging, finally walked away. I thought I would never see him again. I felt relieved from the bottom of my heart. But fate was cruel. 10 years later, I turned 30. To celebrate my grandmother's 80th birthday, I took her to a high-end seafood restaurant. The restaurant was a hidden gem in an alleyway, known only to a few. Knowing my grandmother loved seafood, I was sure she would enjoy it. With excitement, I walked in with my grandmother. The restaurant was cozy with only counter seating, run by a single owner chef. My grandmother was impressed by the place. "Is it okay to dine at such an expensive place?" My grandmother asked me worriedly. The owner chef smiled at my grandmother's words. "Today's your special day, madam. Don't worry and enjoy anything you like." My grandmother happily started ordering. Every dish the chef prepared was delicious, and our conversation flourished. Seeing her so happy, I thought about bringing her here again. As I was thinking this, the restaurant door suddenly swung open. A loud voice came from behind me. "Fancy meeting you here." It must be fate, huh? I turned around, recognizing the unpleasant voice, to see Michael grinning with a woman by his side. My heart sank. Running into him again, especially during this celebration, was truly unfortunate. I decided to leave before my mood was completely ruined. Just as I was helping my grandmother up from her seat after finishing our meal, it happened. Michael started talking about himself again. "This is my fiancée. We're getting married soon. You might recognize her." He introduced the woman standing next to him. She looked somewhat familiar, but I couldn't place her. Then Michael continued, proudly. "It's Alyssa, the cutest girl in our elementary school class. Don't you remember? Maybe you didn't care because you were such a gloomy guy." Alyssa. Oh, that's right, I vaguely remember her. But it didn't matter to me at all. "Congratulations," I said, trying to leave the restaurant. But Michael wouldn't stop talking. "If you want, I can introduce you to someone good too. Though, they'd probably hate a dull guy like you." I couldn't believe he was belittling me in front of my grandmother. I was shocked that Michael's character hadn't changed at all in 10 years. My grandmother's face turned worried in an instant. I could see the owner chef watching us anxiously from behind the counter. I started shaking with anger and, without responding, hurried out of the restaurant with my grandmother. I didn't need Michael to introduce me to any women. I was seething with rage. Once outside, my grandmother looked at me with concern. "Did something happen between you two?" He was being very rude. To ease her worries, I lightly explained that Michael had teased me in elementary school. "He's always been like that. He's not worth worrying about. I'm better than him now." Hearing this, my grandmother looked relieved and began to smile. "Kevin, you've become so strong. You used to come crying to me over the smallest things. You've really grown up." "Come on, Grandma, I'm 30 now," I replied, laughing with her. Despite Michael's unwelcome appearance, the birthday celebration turned out to be very enjoyable. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Why did I keep running into Michael, someone I didn't want to see? Was this some kind of fate? I hoped I wouldn't see him again. Seeing him always brought me down. But fate was not so kind. A few days later, I was at work as usual. It was a day for outside sales. As I walked with my colleague Mark, I saw Michael ahead of us. I was speechless at my bad luck. Again. I thought, trying to walk past him without being noticed. But Michael spotted me. He immediately approached and started talking. "Your company is around here? I can't believe a high school graduate like you found a job. Must be a third-rate company, no need to ask." Michael sneered at me. Mark, who was with me, was shocked at Michael's words. "Yeah, my company is just over there. It might be a third-rate company," I responded, trying to end the conversation. Michael laughed again. "That poor company, stuck with a useless, dull guy like you. No wonder their performance is poor. I should lend you some of my brains." Here we go again. Michael just couldn't resist looking down on me. I was too exasperated to even respond. Mark, standing beside me, looked irritated and said, "Kevin, we need to get going. It's a waste of time dealing with someone like him." Michael's face turned red with anger. But I followed Mark's advice and said, "I'm heading out for sales calls now. I'm busy, so see you around," and started walking away. Michael, still fuming, shouted after us, "I'm sacrificing my valuable time to talk to you useless people. You should be grateful." Both Mark and I were speechless. Michael was unbelievably foolish. Then Mark, as if remembering something, shared a shocking fact with me. I was stunned when I heard it. A while later, I received a letter at my house. Opening it, I found it was an invitation to an elementary school reunion. An elementary school reunion. Michael would probably attend. If he did, he'd definitely look down on me again, so despite wanting to go, I thought it would be best to skip it. Just then, a classmate called to confirm my attendance. When I said I wanted to decline, the classmate asked, "Is it because Michael will be there?" They must have remembered how Michael used to tease me in elementary school. I explained honestly that even after high school graduation, I had run into Michael a few times and endured his insults, so I didn't want to attend. The classmate then gave me some happy news. "Don't worry. Michael isn't coming, he has other plans. So feel free to join us." Huh? Really? If Michael wasn't coming to the reunion, I had no reason not to go, so I decided to attend. Without Michael, it seemed like it would be a fun event, and I felt excited. On the day of the reunion, I dressed in the outfit I had prepared for the occasion and headed confidently to the venue. The reunion was held in a large restaurant in town, a grand event. It had been 18 years since elementary school graduation, but this was the first reunion. I was excited to see what everyone was up to and catch up with them. Entering the venue, I saw my classmates already gathered, enjoying conversations with wine glasses in hand. I quickly grabbed a drink and joined the group, enjoying the lively chats. Some classmates were married with children, sharing photos and stories. Then, a commotion arose near the entrance. I felt a sense of foreboding. My classmates and I turned our attention to the entrance. And I was frozen with fear. There stood Michael, with Alyssa by his side. Wasn't he supposed to be absent? I stood in shock, unable to move. A classmate hurried over to me. This morning, Michael called to say he was coming after all. "I'm sorry for the late notice." The classmate looked apologetic. But since I was already there, I decided to stay unnoticed and quietly leave the venue. Unfortunately, Michael spotted me. As soon as he saw me, he walked over with a smug grin. "Leaving already? I'm here too, let's chat more." Other classmates were watching me. Although I wanted to leave immediately, I didn't want to ruin the atmosphere. Reluctantly, I decided to stay a bit longer. One of the classmates spoke to Michael in surprise. "I'm shocked. I never expected you to be dating Alyssa." Michael wore a smug expression. Back in those days, I didn't pay much attention to girls, but apparently, Alyssa was famous among the boys for being cute. Alyssa blushed. "We met through a mutual friend. I heard there was someone who graduated from a prestigious university and worked at a top company. And it turned out to be Michael. We started dating and quickly decided to get married. Even I'm surprised at how fast it all happened." Everyone looked at Michael with envy. Michael, basking in their admiration, proudly said, "We're getting married soon. I'd love it if you all could come to the wedding." Some people applauded and congratulated him. "I envy that you are in the happiest time of your life. Graduating from a prestigious university really makes a difference." one classmate said, and Michael beamed. Well, I'm nothing like Kevin over there. If you end up like him, your life is over. I couldn't believe he would say something like that at a reunion. I was too shocked to speak. While I was struggling to contain my anger, Michael dropped a bombshell. I'm a manager at a top company. Unlike you, who will be stuck working at a third-rate company for the rest of your life. In front of 100 classmates, Michael looked down on me. I had reached my limit. Then, a classmate exclaimed in amazement. Aren't you working at that top company, Oakwood Corporation? Being a manager there is impressive. I was stunned. That couldn't be true. What was he talking about? I calmly asked Michael. Which department at Oakwood Corporation are you a manager of? Everyone turned their attention to Michael. He started to panic. What does it matter to you? Why should I tell you? A classmate nudged Michael, laughing. Come on, don't be shy. It's not like it costs you anything to tell us. A classmate said jokingly, making Michael even more flustered. Encouraged by the classmates, Michael reluctantly muttered in a small voice, the sales department. Cheers erupted from the classmates. A sales manager at Oakwood Corporation? That's incredible. The sales department there is known for being highly competitive. Way to go, Michael. Michael looked proud again. But everything he said was a lie. I couldn't let him continue to deceive everyone. It was time to reveal the truth about Michael. Oh, really? Who approved the new manager? Huh? Michael looked confused. Everyone turned to me, puzzled. Michael, when did you become the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation? Michael blared at me. About 6 months ago. Why do you care? Even if you're jealous, you'll never work at Oakwood Corporation. Our classmates were holding their breath, watching the exchange. I couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny? Because, Michael, you becoming the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation is impossible. And you saying I could never work there is quite ironic. What? The room fell silent. Then, I revealed the truth. I'm the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation. My classmates stared at me with wide eyes, clearly in disbelief. No one seemed to believe what they were hearing. Michael seemed too shocked to speak. There's no way. You're just a high school graduate. High school grads can't work at Oakwood Corporation. You must be at some third-rate company. I showed Michael my business card, which I happened to have with me. It clearly stated that I was the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation. The classmates began passing my card around, and the room buzzed with excitement. Michael's face turned pale and he started to tremble. Kevin, a sales manager at Oakwood Corporation. Michael was completely bewildered. Indeed, Oakwood Corporation doesn't hire high school graduates now, but they did when I joined. I started in the sales department right out of high school. Michael looked even more shaken, almost collapsing. Yes, I actually work at Oakwood Corporation. Currently, I serve as the sales manager. The path to becoming a manager wasn't easy. Being a high school graduate meant I had to work harder than my college-educated colleagues. I spent countless hours working, sometimes even sleeping at the office. Through perseverance, I achieved top sales results in the department. This made me well known within the sales team. And this spring, my efforts were recognized, and I became the youngest manager in the company's history. I could hardly believe it myself when I got the promotion. It felt like a dream. Now, as a manager, I strive to make the sales department even better every day. That's why I knew it was impossible for Michael to be the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation. Moreover, Michael wasn't an employee of my company. Michael, what's going on? Alyssa, who had been quietly listening, raised her voice in shock. Other classmates were also puzzled. Does this mean Michael has been lying to us? The room erupted in murmurs. Michael stayed silent, not knowing what to say. Since he wouldn't admit it, I decided to reveal the truth. Why lie, Michael? You work in the sales department at Johnson Industries, a subsidiary of Oakwood Corporation, don't you? Michael looked at me in disbelief. Alyssa was stunned. How do you know that? Michael stammered, trembling. A loud voice emerged from the crowd. I told him. Do you remember me? Mark, with a sharp gaze, stared at Michael. Michael seemed to recognize him instantly and was taken aback. You're Mark from university. We were also in elementary school together, right? And you were with Kevin earlier. Are you also an employee at Oakwood Corporation? Yes, I am. You teased me endlessly back in elementary school, remember? When I found out we were going to the same university, I was really upset. But you seem to have forgotten all about me. Now, I'm working in the sales department at Oakwood Corporation. The classmates were in an uproar. Mark was actually my colleague. After graduating from University, he joined Oakwood Corporation. And he became my subordinate. Mark also grew up in a household without a mother, just like me. Because of this, Michael had bullied Mark in the same way he bullied me. Mark hated Michael and had tried to avoid any interaction with him from that point on. Unfortunately, he ended up at the same university as Michael but was in a different department, so he managed to graduate without being bullied. However, while we were out on a sales call, we ran into Michael. At that moment, Mark revealed that he had gone to the same university as Michael and told me about his job. Wait a minute, Mark graduated from University, right? So Michael also went to University? But didn't Michael say he graduated from University? Michael started to get flustered again. Alyssa looked like she was about to cry, tears welling up in her eyes. Michael had lied to us about graduating from a prestigious university, and also about working at a top company. How much did he need to boost his ego? Unbelievable. Where I graduated from and where I work is none of your business. Stop meddling. Michael finally snapped and started yelling. The classmates around us were stunned into silence. Don't boast about lies. Think about how Alyssa feels. Mark glared at Michael. But Michael didn't back down. Alyssa loves me. It doesn't matter whether I went to school or where I work. We're connected by true love. He said this with such a confidence. How could he say that after boasting with such false credentials? Alyssa stood there in shock and began to cry. You lied to my parents too. We've even had a formal engagement. How are you going to take responsibility? I hate liars. I can't marry you. Our classmates surrounded Alyssa, looking at her with pity. Michael was stunned by her words, his previous bravado gone. He started pleading to Alyssa. Alyssa, you said you loved me no matter what. I admit I lied about my background, but please don't say that. But Alyssa refused to even look at him. Of course. I wouldn't want to be involved with a liar even if I were in her position. Consider the engagement off. I can't do this anymore. Alyssa said and left the reunion hall. Michael desperately ran after her, leaving the venue as well. The hall fell into a stunned silence. I can't believe Michael was lying about all of this. At least the truth came out now. Alyssa would have been miserable otherwise. With Michael and Alyssa gone, we were free to reminisce and enjoy the rest of the reunion. A few days later, I arrived at the office as usual. There, I saw Mr. Johnson, the president of Johnson Industries, and Michael. I figured it was about the recent event. With that in mind, I approached the two of them. As soon as Mr. Johnson saw me, he began to apologize. I am deeply sorry for the trouble Michael has caused. We had no idea he was using your name to boast about a false position at Oakwood Corporation. Mr. Johnson looked sincerely apologetic. We truly had no idea he was lying about being the sales manager. Michael, apologize properly. Mr. Johnson urged Michael to apologize. But Michael, sulking, didn't move. Yes, Michael had been boasting in various places that he was the sales manager at Oakwood Corporation. Mark had discovered this and reported it to Johnson Industries. I was just joking around. Kevin and I are friends, so it's no big deal. Michael showed no sign of remorse. I had reached my limit. Michael and I are not friends. Since he shows no remorse, I expect appropriate action to be taken. When I said this, Michael turned pale. Mr. Johnson began to panic. Of course. We will consider Michael's position when we return to the company. Come on, Michael. Let's go. Michael suddenly stood up and clung to me. Kevin, I apologize for everything. Please, I'm begging you. I ignored Michael and walked away. It's too late for him to apologize now. He needs to deal with the consequences of his actions. Later, I heard through the grapevine that Michael and Alyssa's wedding was called off. Additionally, Mr. Johnson fired Michael from the company. Michael is now desperately hunting for a job, but in this small town, his reputation has quickly spread, and no company is willing to hire him. It seems it will be very difficult for Michael to find a new job anytime soon. But this is the natural consequence of involving so many people in his lies. Whatever happens to Michael from now on is none of my concern. I will continue to live my life with my head held high.
You're just a wife of the accountant. It doesn't give you the right to be so arrogant. One day, I was invited to a birthday party for a politician who is one of our important clients. However, as soon as his son, Sean, saw my wife, he came over to us and said, "Hey, let me take your wife for a while, okay? I can make things much better for you at work, you know." But we firmly declined his offer. Sean got angry and poured wine all over my wife's dress. Her beautiful beige dress was stained with the color of red wine. No matter if you're the son of a congressman, there are things that are acceptable and things that are not. I would like you to apologize to my wife. I demanded an apology in a calm manner, but Sean just laughed it off. I'm not just the son of a congressman, you know. I have the mafia backing me up, so I can do whatever I want and get away with it. I'm invincible," he said with a triumphant laugh, to which I responded with a thin smile. "Oh really? Which organization are you talking about? Bring them here, please." The mafia he was talking about are actually: my name is Rick, 33 years old, and I'm supposed to be an accountant. I say supposed to be because there's a bit of a story behind it. My father was a strict man, and from a young age, I was drilled in studies, martial arts, manners, and various other things. I studied abroad for university and stayed overseas until I graduated from graduate school. After returning to my country, I opened an accounting firm. It's a small office, but we have many clients, including politicians, and it can be said that we are thriving. Soon after opening the accounting office, I got married. The woman who became my wife is named Gabriella. As the name suggests, she is beautiful just by being there. I met Gabriella while studying abroad, and I remember being so struck by her beauty the first time I saw her that I was breathless. She was slender, glamorous, and elegant, and I thought I had never seen such a beautiful person before. I might say this about myself, but I have a very ordinary appearance. Average build, not handsome but not ugly either. No particularly notable features. But I also consider that to be my weapon. In my line of work, it's better to not stand out unless necessary. That's what I think. But when I met Gabriella, I sincerely wished I had the outstanding looks of a Hollywood actor. And now, I'm married to Gabriella and living a happy life. Life is indeed a mysterious thing. We've been married for 7 years now. We don't have any children yet, but we live in harmony. One time, we were invited to a party by one of our clients, who is a politician. It wasn't one of those fundraising parties that are often talked about, but a birthday party for the politician. It was supposed to be a very private gathering, but being a politician, it turned out to be quite a grand affair. I wore a designer suit, and Gabriella wore a dress to the venue. While I in my suit might have gone unnoticed, I could tell from the moment Gabriella stepped out of the car that she was drawing looks from everyone around. And no wonder. After all, she is my pride and joy. I had a proud gleam behind my silver-rimmed glasses. Today, Gabriella is wearing a beige dress that isn't too flashy. It's a choice that won't stand out too much but can still liven up the atmosphere, as she isn't the main character of the event. The dress itself is a strapless, bare shoulder style. This skirt length extends to below the knees. To match the beige of the dress, she's wearing heels with a simple design that aren't too high. This might seem too plain, but she's layered it with a fluffy chiffon fabric short top. I'm explaining this in such detail, but it's all coming from Gabriella. I've been made to study various things by her, but I'm certainly not that knowledgeable about women's fashion. These things tend to go in and out of fashion quickly, after all. According to Gabriella, it's supposed to create a sheer effect, but all I know is that no matter what dress she wears, Gabriella looks beautiful. Beneath the layered sheer top, Gabriella's beautiful, smooth shoulders are subtly visible. The fluffy layer on top of the sleek dress only reveals the silhouette of Gabriella's radiant skin, creating an incredibly beautiful look. Upon closer inspection, it's quite sexy, but since Gabriella's makeup is subdued today and her hair is styled in a simple curly look, she appears nothing but elegant. You look amazing, Gabriella, as always. I say, honestly impressed, when she shows me the final look at home. Oh, please, flattery will get you nothing more than a hug. Gabriella jests in response to my compliment, coming in for a light hug. She's perfect in every way. That such a woman as my wife still feels unreal to me. Shall we go then? I'm sure you'll be the center of attention at the venue too. That wouldn't do. Today, it's Michael and his family who are the stars. Don't forget that. Gabriella says, intertwining her arm with mine. Even though she dressed with such consideration, Gabriella still ended up drawing attention. Had there been a Hollywood-level man by her side, they would have looked like stars on the red carpet. Unfortunately, it's just average me next to her. And right now, I'm grateful for that ordinariness. Gabriella is that radiant after all. Upon announcing ourselves at the reception, we were handed name tags. I affixed Gabriella's to her dress and clipped mine to my suit's chest pocket. I'm fine with it. Having a name tag on the chest pocket of a suit is quite common at gatherings. But the name tag on Gabriella's perfect attire seemed out of place. I couldn't help but sigh lightly. Gabriella probably knew why I sighed. She gave a soft chuckle. First, we went to wish Michael Simmons, the congressman and the star today, a happy birthday. Michael, thank you for inviting us to such a joyful occasion today. Happy birthday. Oh, Rick, thank you for coming with your wife. And Gabriella, you always look beautiful, but today you are especially stunning. Did you dress up like this for my celebration? Michael said, complimenting Gabriella as a formality, but the look in his eyes showed his sincerity. Well, Michael, you're quite the charmer. Thank you. Today's attire is for you, Michael, and your supportive family. Gabriella said with a full smile, then turned to greet Michael's wife standing beside him. Michael's wife is a former actress. Not quite a leading lady, but if you heard her name, you'd likely recognize her. Marrying Michael when he was still an up-and-coming politician brought her wider recognition. She retired from the entertainment industry upon marriage and is now acknowledged as the devoted wife of a prominent politician. Even in her 50s, her beauty remains intact. Gabriella's response to Michael was carefully chosen to ensure no one misunderstood her intentions. Such perfect consideration. After greeting Michael and his wife, we mingled with the guests at the standing party. With this, Gabriella wouldn't stand out any more than she already had. I let out a sigh of relief and my shoulders slumped a bit. From here on out, I decided to blend in with the many guests and enjoy the party at a leisurely pace until it ended. We went around the tables laden with various dishes and carried our plates to an available table that seemed suitable. What about drinks? I think we should probably avoid alcohol today, Gabriella said, though her gaze was fixed on the drink counter despite her words. Gabriella enjoys her drinks quite a bit. Especially at occasions like this, there's always a selection of fine beverages. Deep down, she probably wants to enjoy a variety. A little wouldn't hurt, right? But still. As long as we don't overdo it, it should be fine. Wait here for a moment. Saying that, I headed towards the counter, and Gabriella stuck out her tongue playfully. Despite her appearance, she has these lovely moments that I absolutely adore. I casually picked out a drink that I thought would suit Gabriella. It would be nice if we could have a little taste of each. I can finish off the rest. I ordered at the bar counter and got a light white wine and a whiskey on the rocks. This whiskey is extremely popular worldwide right now. What used to be readily available at local liquor stores has become scarce and premium priced. But there was plenty of that rare whiskey here. Indeed, that's one powerful politician. Since it's available, I might as well enjoy it a bit. Getting drunk isn't a goal. I just want to savor the flavor of the alcohol, so a small taste like this is perfect. As I took the glasses and was about to return to Gabriella, I noticed some commotion. It seemed like someone was bothering Gabriella. I regretted leaving her alone. With her beauty, it was inevitable that someone with ulterior motives would seize the chance to approach her. I recognized the face of the man causing the trouble. It was Ulrich's wife. Waiting for Gabriella to be alone, Michael's eldest son, Sean, approached her with that line. "Yes, I am." "Just perfect. Let's have a drink together." Sean tried to put his hand on Gabriella's shoulder familiarly, but she smoothly dodged it. "I'm sorry, but I'm not much of a drinker." "If you can't drink, that's fine. Then, pour for me." He was treating Gabriella so bad. Holding glasses in both hands, I hurried back to Gabriella. "Rick." Gabriella noticed my return. "Excuse me, did my wife do something rude to you?" "I'm well aware there hasn't been any rudeness, but the person in question is the son of a client. It's necessary to handle the situation with courtesy." "No, I just asked your wife to drink with me, and she said she couldn't drink, but apparently it was a lie." Sean looked displeased as he saw the glasses in my hands and said so. "No, it's not a lie, she can drink, but we thought it best not to drink much today, so we're just having a small taste." Sean looked at me skeptically, then turned his gaze back to Gabriella. "She is too good for you, right? How can a plain, boring guy like you, who could be found anywhere, end up with such a beauty?" I hesitated a bit before responding. Sean's remark wasn't entirely unjustified. Indeed, from any perspective, I am a man without any distinguishing features. On the other hand, Sean could be considered handsome by anyone just based on his appearance. Tall and slender, with a physique that suggests he works out, his chest and arms are well defined, much like his beautiful mother. "Hey gentlemen, don't you think I'm tens of times more suitable for that beauty than someone like you?" Yes, based on looks alone, Sean might be more suitable for Gabriella than me. But that's only if we're talking about looks. "Hey, let me take your wife for a while, okay? I can make things much better for you at work, you know." Then Sean made an outrageous proposition. "It's not a bad deal, right? A win-win for both of us. Isn't that the way to go?" "No, thank you." Gabriella cut him off with an immediate response before he could finish. "I refuse as well." I followed suit after Gabriella. Sean's face turned red with anger, his mouth opening and closing in disbelief. He probably didn't expect to be refused. He must have used similar tactics before, using his position to intimidate those weaker than him. Suddenly, Sean acted on his impulse. "You're just a wife of the accountant. It doesn't give you the right to be so arrogant." With that, He poured wine all over Gabriella's dress. Her beige dress was stained with the color of red wine. No matter if you are Michael's son, there are things that are acceptable and things that are not. I would like you to apologize to my wife. I demanded an apology from Sean in a calm manner, trying to keep my anger in check. But Sean, scoffing at us with disdain, continued. You know, it's not just about my dad being a congressman. I have some really rough people backing me up. Is that so? Sean, seemingly provoked by my response, added. Let me spell it out for you. Don't freak out, gentlemen. My dad's got the mafia behind him, which makes me the strongest here. Sean laughed at his own words, as if he found them amusing. Oh really? Which organization are you talking about? Bring them here, please. I responded with a thin smile, mirroring Sean's. What, you doubt me? No, not at all. I'm simply expressing my interest in meeting those rough people you mentioned. As I maintained a composed smile, Sean seemed to become even more infuriated. Fine, you'll regret this later. Come on. Sean ordered one of his entourage to go and tell his father something. Sean is often said to be Michael's eventual heir, but frankly, he does not have a good reputation. In fact, it's quite bad. He can do whatever he wants with the prestige of his parents. His parents seem to be constantly putting out fires he starts, but they can't keep everyone's mouths shut. There are even people who support Michael but openly say they can't stand it if Sean becomes his heir. His relationships with women are especially flamboyant, with rumors of numerous instances where he's paid women not to talk about their relationships. I've heard such stories too. Sean himself has no power but his parents do, and furthermore, they have rough people backing them up. From those facts, he must be mistaken that he has the power. That's a clear case of the ass in the lion's skin. Prompted by Sean, his minion ran off straight to Michael. Likely a routine they've performed countless times before. It was a rather impressive display of teamwork. As I was pondering this, Gabriella swiftly took the 2 glasses from my hand and poured the white wine generously over the red wine stain on her dress. Sean was visibly shocked by this unexpected move. Did you know you can dilute a red wine stain with white wine? Gabriella said, and then she took a swig of the whiskey on the rocks. Delicious. This is a top-grade whiskey, increasingly rare to come across these days. Michael really knows his stuff. Gabriella, with only the ice remaining in her glass, raised it in a toast, smiling beautifully at Sean. Sean couldn't utter a single word, frozen in place like a statue. Sean probably thought that we, as a couple, would be terrified and immobilized by his words, but Gabriella's behavior took him by surprise. He likely couldn't comprehend what was happening. It seems the whiskey's hitting me a bit. It's getting warm. Excuse me for a moment. Gabriella said, handing me the glass before starting to remove her wine-stained jacket. Her shimmering shoulders were then revealed. Sean was captivated by her radiant, pure white skin. But on that pristine skin, something began to emerge. What's that? Gradually, the contours took on color, and soon a stunning crimson rose appeared on Gabriella's right shoulder. Raised carvings. This technique is known as raised tattoo. Commonly referred to as tattoos or ink. Those in the know prefer the term carvings. Gabriella's body bore these carvings from her right shoulder across her back and down to her left inner thigh, all adorned with crimson roses. Even Sean seemed to faintly realize that a woman with such tattoos was no ordinary person. His complexion turned pale. Gabriella, with a smile reminiscent of a celestial being, slightly lifted the hem of her suit to flash the rose on her left thigh at Sean. There was no need to give such a show to someone like him, though. That's what I thought, but the brief glimpse had a profound effect, turning Sean's already pale face completely white. By then, Michael, having been informed of the situation, rushed over to us. "Rick, I heard my son has caused some trouble." Michael was drenched in sweat. Likely, half of it was cold sweat. "Sean, what have you done?" "Well." Sean trembled under Michael's stern gaze. He had likely been indulged as the heir, getting away with anything up until now. This was probably the first time he had seen his father in such a state. "Michael, it's nothing serious. The young master just accidentally spilled some wine, that's all," Gabriella said with a smile. "Yes, it's nothing significant, just a minor mishap, like from a child." "Yes, just that, but what the young master said afterward, that's what's concerning us. We heard your son boasts of close ties with some rough individuals. We're quite curious about who they might be. We'd love to meet them." Hearing our words, both Michael and Sean seemed to tremble even more. Perhaps even Sean was starting to realize who I really was. "I'm terribly sorry." Michael deeply apologized. "It's my lack of oversight. I'll rectify his behavior immediately. Please, I beg of you, be magnanimous." His words trailed off into incoherence. "Take Sean away." Michael ordered his secretaries to take Sean somewhere out of sight. "It's a family matter now, Gabriella. We should probably take our leave," I suggested. "Yes, I think so, and we got to enjoy some fine wine," Gabriella agreed. We left the rest to Michael and exited the venue. The rough person Sean mentioned was actually me. Officially, I run an accounting firm, but behind the scenes, I'm involved in what you might call the economically literate mafia. When I was born, my father, discerning that the mafia world couldn't sustain itself as it was, rigorously trained me as his heir. And Gabriella, too, comes from a mafia family. Her father was a mafia member from the good old days but seemed to have realized that they couldn't continue that way. Both our fathers bet on our marriage for survival, marrying their children to each other. Due to various complications domestically, our meeting and subsequent marriage took place overseas. It was essentially a political marriage. However, I fell in love with Gabriella at first sight. Her beauty, of course, but also her spirited nature, as we all saw earlier. I thought she was truly a magnificent woman. Gabriella, on her part, wasn't too keen initially. She fancied the typical tough guys seen in mafia movies. So, for the sake of her family and the organization, she reluctantly accepted the marriage to me. But as we got engaged and spent time together, she fell in love with my inner self, too. Rick might look like a civil servant, but inside him resides the soul of a mafioso, she'd say, seemingly complimenting me. And so, we became a deeply in love couple. Now, we can imagine life without each other, such is the depth of our mutual affection. People like Sean, small-time punks, are what we despise the most. We know exactly what the word mafia means. That's why we never harm ordinary folks. But someone like Sean, who has no power of his own, tends to trample on others with the help of others. Michael, keeping someone like him as the heir, we see their future not good, you know. Gabriella said, intertwining her arm with mine. Indeed, but maybe we should give him a chance once, I replied. Jess, we've known each other for a long time, after all, Gabriella added. We closely observed what Michael would do next. Shortly thereafter, Sean entered a period of illness and retreated from public life. It's likely just a cover story. Michael appointed a secretary as his heir. The Simmons family has only Sean as a male heir. They have 2 daughters, and it seems the eldest and the secretary are to be married. I wonder what this secretary is like, Gabriella mused. He's quite an impressive individual. There had been talk that he would make a good heir for a while now, I informed her. Then the only issue is whether the eldest daughter can come to love him. Gabriella pondered, her expression turning slightly sympathetic as if recalling her own experiences. I'm lucky to have married someone I love so dearly, but I would have felt sorry if that weren't the case, she reflected. I feel the same. I'm happy because it's Gabriella, but who knows how things would have turned out otherwise. I confessed, speaking my truth. Even if Gabriella hadn't been my partner, I would have married for the sake of my family and organization and would have taken care of my wife. But whether I would have felt this happy is another question. Right, and even if the person was wonderful, if the chemistry wasn't there, it just wouldn't work, Gabriella added. Indeed, I agreed. May those two cherish each other and find lasting happiness, Gabriella expressed her hope for the secretary and the eldest daughter. We wished for the happiness of the new heir couple of the Simmons family, and for the further prosperity of the Simmons family. It's because these wishes are connected to the deep ties of our organization and to our own bright future. Gabriella, we also need an heir, I mentioned. At that, Gabriella blushed like the wine that day and gently rested her head on my shoulder. I can't stand the thought of having to associate with someone as lowly as you any longer. Please cut ties with my husband. I was invited to my best friend's wedding and, due to work commitments, arrived a bit late. When the staff guided me to my table, I was shocked to see what was placed there. What in the world is this? There was a framed photograph of me, as if it were my obituary. Then, a woman approached me, laughing, and said, I was so worried that all the effort we put into the surprise would go to waste since you were taking so long to show up. Ha ha ha, sorry, but I just can't see myself continuing a relationship with someone as lowly as you. Please cut ties with my husband and head back home. So, you're saying it's okay if I fire your husband then? Huh? My name is Michael Parker. I'm a rather unremarkable 28-year-old bachelor working at a small to medium-sized company in New York. Although it's a small company, we have carved out a niche in an industry that other companies have yet to penetrate, often referred to as a niche or gap industry. Despite its size, our company has garnered attention for its unique development capabilities. In the past, we were even featured in a renowned magazine's top 80 promising companies with growth potential list. It's fair to consider it a desirable company for the younger generation looking to join. I moved to New York when I was 16. I had enrolled in a local high school just like everyone else. I was spending enjoyable days with my friends, but due to certain circumstances, I had to drop out. Unable to graduate from high school, I was labeled a dropout and consequently chased away from my family home. Losing my family home and unable to find a job locally, I decided to move to New York, where there seemed to be a variety of job opportunities. Initially, I thought to rely on my uncle, who worked at the headquarters of a major corporation. However, the moment he saw me, his expression twisted, clearly indicating his annoyance at my arrival. Perhaps he was embarrassed to introduce a high school dropout like me to his boss. Feeling unwelcome and hesitant to impose, I decided against relying on my uncle and started thoroughly searching for job magazines for any available positions. Jobs that high school dropouts are accepted. I also sought out places that offered accommodation or a dormitory. Immediate start positions were particularly appealing. After searching with those criteria, I applied for a newspaper delivery job that matched and moved into the dormitory right away. The job involved various tasks like unloading goods, inserting flyers, and delivering and collecting payments for newspapers in the morning and evening. It was a demanding job that started early and didn't allow for days off even in bad weather. However, once I got used to the work rhythm, it wasn't too tough. I had free time, and as long as I didn't indulge in luxuries, I could earn enough to live comfortably. For me, it was a perfectly satisfactory life. Each newspaper delivery person was assigned a specific area. The area that I was responsible for included schools, factories, and businesses. It was somewhat akin to an industrial zone. Among them was a company engaged in a field I had always been interested in. Despite its worn appearance, the company was still active, and when I went to collect payments each month, I was greeted by President Thompson, who seemed like he might have retired. "Hello, I'm here for this month's collection." "Oh, Michael, welcome." As I entered the company in a casual manner, President Thompson would always greet me with a smile and make tea. Served with tea and sweets as if it were a small token for the collection, I had made it a habit to chat and pass the time here. One day, during a casual conversation with President Thompson, I had the opportunity to talk about the field I was studying as a hobby. "Oh, you're studying this field, huh?" "Well, yes. I haven't had formal education since I'm just a dropout." "Education doesn't matter. What's important is your motivation and perseverance." President Thompson showed interest in my story and introduced me to a person named Dylan, who was in sales at the company, on the spot. I later learned that this sales representative was actually the executive vice president. Despite his high position, he was very approachable, which might have been due to President Thompson's kind nature, making me think that the company attracted similarly open-hearted people. I was just an amateur with no formal education. Yet, Dylan listened to my story attentively. At the end of our conversation, President Thompson, who had listened with us, surprisingly offered me an opportunity. "The pay isn't great, and it might be tough at the beginning, but if you're willing, Michael, would you like to work with us?" Being a high school dropout with no significant skills, I thought I would never be able to get a job at a decent company, so this offer was very appealing. I could acquire skills at this company. Please, I would like that very much. I decided on the spot, returned to my part-time job, and promptly resigned. With the money saved from my newspaper delivery job, I rented a cheap apartment and commuted to the company from there. At first, the salary was indeed meager, but I learned the basics thoroughly here. Dylan and the other seniors taught me a lot of knowledge with great care. Being a small company, I was able to learn not just technology, but also sales and accounting in practice, which undoubtedly had a significant impact on my life later on. After gaining sufficient skills working under President Thompson, he encouraged me to aim even higher. And then, 2 years ago, a childhood friend and classmate from my hometown, which I hadn't returned to since coming to New York, came to visit. His name was Jason. Tall and sturdy, Jason greeted me with a smile as soon as we met. I've always been bad at sports, but Jason, on the other hand, was exceptional in athletics and could handle any sport with ease, making him a cool friend. He was popular in class and somewhat of a hero. At sports festivals, he was always the pride of our class, being at the center of everything. "It's been a while, Michael. How have you been?" "Jason, of course, I'm doing well, and you're as solid as ever." "Yeah, I still run every morning." Seeing Jason smile after such a long time was like seeing the sun shine brightly. He was the epitome of a refreshing, good young man, and having not known his recent circumstances since coming to New York, I was relieved to see his cheerful nature was still intact. Since our reunion, we've been meeting up whenever possible, as if making up for lost time. We kept in touch for email, but it felt like we didn't need it. There was no distance between us. It was as if the time apart hadn't happened, and our relationship hadn't changed from before. Jason hadn't changed a bit. However, there was something that bothered me. For about 6 months, I've felt a slight, just a slight, discomfort in my interactions with Jason. I knew the reason. It was the hostility towards me from a woman Jason had started dating. Her name was Emily. She was flashy, with trendy makeup. I've only met her a few times, but I didn't have a good impression of her from the start. Her appearance, well, I thought she was Jason's type, so I didn't really think much of it. But Emily, who was smiling when introduced, showed her true colors as soon as Jason left the table. The moment Jason was out of sight, her expression vanished and she looked down on me with cold eyes, as if she was looking at an insect. "You're a high school dropout, right? You look the part." "What?" "Huh, you're clearly an uneducated fool." Her attitude was so different that I was taken aback, thinking I had misheard her. "Jason and I both graduated from college, you know. We got our degrees from regular admissions. The difference in our achievements is clear. Aren't you ashamed to be a dropout? How can you even claim to be Jason's friend? If it were me, I'd be too embarrassed to keep in touch. Do you think you're on the same level as us?" It seemed that Emily took pride in being a college graduate, just like Jason. She seemed to be particularly bothered by the fact that I, a high school dropout, was close friends with Jason. Ever since that first meeting, whenever I encountered her with Jason, she behaved the same way. When Jason wasn't looking, she would click her tongue or ignore me, openly displaying childish hostility. Heck, I hate this. Hanging out with such a low-life idiot might make us dumb too. High school dropouts are really stupid, aren't they? I'm trying to be polite and indirect, but you just don't get it. When I show up, you should have the sense to leave. I had my own thoughts about the situation, but Jason seemed to care a lot about her. Perhaps she was a wonderful girlfriend in front of Jason. I decided it was best not to get involved more than necessary and ignored her behavior. Even though I was worried about Jason continuing to date her, it seemed he had decided to marry Emily. I received the wedding invitation directly from Jason. "Congratulations." I managed to offer my congratulations, but I'm not sure I was able to smile. My face might have even been twisted. Still, not wanting to dampen Jason's happiness, I decided not to say anything about Emily. After all, her issue was with me alone. I wanted to believe she truly loved Jason. It's possible that my interactions with Jason might decrease in the future. While the thought made me feel lonely, I consoled myself that it would be the same no matter who he married. On the day of Jason's wedding, I was delayed due to a sudden work commitment. I rushed to the venue, but it appeared the reception had already started. "You are here for the ceremony, right? Please allow me to guide you to your seat. This way." As I reached the table I was directed to and was about to sit down, I intended to thank the staff member who had pulled out the chair for me. I followed the gaze of the staff member who had let out a stifled sound, wondering what had happened. "Oh, this is..." I understood why the staff member had frozen, but I was at a loss for what to do next. On the chair, pulled out from under the table, was something inconceivable. It was a photo of me, framed in black. Everyone who saw it was taken aback by the bizarre sight of what seemed to be a living person's memorial photo placed at a celebratory table. While the staff member were trying to figure out what to do about the situation, a cheerful laugh echoed, "Hee-haw." "Oh, I can finally say it." The voice belonged to Emily, one of the day's main figures, the bride. "Inviting an idiot dropout like you was a mistake from the start. I was so worried that my special surprise would go to waste because you were taking so long to show up. Hee-haw." With the joy of a child who had successfully pulled off a prank, all eyes in the room turned to Emily. Was she unaware of the atmosphere in the room, or did she simply not see the people around her? Emily directed a twisted, malicious expression at me, no longer bothering to hide her ill will. Even dressed beautifully in her gown, her expression was devilish. "I'm marrying this man. Jason will sever ties with lowlifes like you for good. That photo represents someone who's no longer here. I don't want someone with bad luck like you at this joyous occasion. Now, take that photo and leave." she declared as if her demands were entirely justified. The venue was filled with a BGM chosen by the couple, themed around eternal love, but the exchange at this table was so bizarre that no one dared to speak. This situation was so absurdly incongruous with the background music that it became almost comical. I chuckled quietly and looked straight at Emily. "Cut ties, you say?" "Yes. Don't make me say it again." "So, you're saying it's okay to fire Jason, then?" I shrugged at this. "What are you talking about?" "Emily." Jason forcefully pulled Emily's arm, which he had begun to raise. He must have been dumbfounded by Emily's sudden and outrageous actions until now. "Ouch, that hurts." Emily screamed, but Jason, who had turned pale, didn't seem to care. Why would you do something like this?" It was clear he was deeply shaken as he grabbed Emily's shoulders and shook her vigorously. "What do you mean why? It's obviously for our sake." "Emily, how long do you plan to keep looking after a dropout idiot like him? I didn't go to college to associate with lowlifes like this." Emily's outburst caused a stir throughout the venue. Jason's colleagues, who had been observing the situation at the same table, interjected awkwardly. Emily seems to be under a misunderstanding. It's not Jason who's been looking after things, but President Parker," one of the colleagues clarified, pointing towards me. At this, Emily looked puzzled. "Huh? President Parker? Who's that?" Holding the arms of a bewildered Emily, Jason shouted as if barking out. "It's him. I work for Michael's company." When Jason, a former athlete with a strong lung capacity, raised his voice in anger, the room was enveloped in a silence so profound it was almost painful to the ears. Before anyone realized it, the background music had stopped and the venue had become eerily quiet. Emily blinked several times, slowly coming to understand that this was no joke. Despite momentarily turning pale, she did not let her suspicious gaze towards me waver. "This man is a president, but he's a dropout. I don't know what he did, but he must have started his company with money won from horse racing or, the lottery, and then he just set up the company and leaves all the brain work to people like Jason, who are college graduates. How terrible," she ranted. She was determined to say whatever she wanted without holding back. Even Jason was subjected to harsh criticism from those around him due to Emily's ignorant remarks. "Enough, just be quiet." Jason gritted his teeth and shouted to silence Emily, then turned back to me and apologized deeply. "I'm really sorry, despite taking time out of your busy schedule to come here, to be greeted with such terrible treatment. Even though I was unaware, I don't know how to begin to apologize." "What? Why are you apologizing to such a lowlife?" "I'm truly sorry." Jason choked on his words as he spoke. "That's right, it's all your fault," a figure shouted as they rushed over. It was Jason's father, Frank, coming from the family seats, a face I remembered fondly. Frank struck Jason on the head with a knuckle punch. "Do you think you can get away with just that?" Frank, raising his voice as if forgetting this was a wedding venue, apologized to me on the spot. In a panic, Jason shrank his large frame and apologized next to Frank in the same manner. "Young master, despite the countless times you've extended a helping hand to my unworthy son, to end up with this mess. As a parent, I am truly ashamed and sorry beyond words. Please accept my deepest apologies." With that, he broke down crying. Those unaware of the situation were puzzled by the sudden apologies from the groom and his father. The venue staff gathered around, unsure of what to do, just watching the situation unfold, while Emily stood there, dumbfounded. "Please, I'm too old to be called young master, Frank. I insist. Besides, I'm not in that position anymore." Despite my urging, Frank stubbornly refused to stop apologizing. Jason is what he is today thanks to you, young master. It's because you protected Jason that he could continue playing baseball for college. Despite the sacrifice of not graduating high school yourself, you persevered and started your own company. And when Jason could no longer work in a big company, you kindly took him into your own. No one could interrupt Frank's tearful speech. This fool, Jason, has lived because of the help from the young master, and to betray that in such a way. Next to the sobbing Frank, Jason was also crying silently, his body shaking. Frank wiped away his tears with his sleeve. Young master, I'll disown Jason for bringing such an unworthy woman into our family. Please, this time, give up on Jason for good. Frank was firm in his decision, a man of strong principles. Frank was the gardener in my family home. With skilled hands, Frank maintained our garden, a man of deep emotion and principle, but also simple and quick to anger. Please, don't talk about disowning him. I've just lived my life the way I wanted. There's no need to be indebted forever. Jason should have the freedom to choose his own career and spouse. Even as I said this, Frank stubbornly shook his head. I don't want to think of such an ungrateful person as my son. Faced with the stubborn Frank, I wondered what to do. I knew from our long relationship that once Frank got like this, he wouldn't listen to reason. Reluctantly, I began to persuade Frank. Placing a hand on his shoulder, I chose my words carefully and calmly. Meanwhile, Emily, who had been standing by, seemed to snap back to reality and grabbed Jason by the collar, shaking him. What is going on? Fix this situation. Jason, refusing to even meet her gaze, ignored everything Emily said. Unaware that she was the cause of the situation, Emily began to physically attack Jason. Eventually, the staff and others intervened, and Emily was taken to the waiting room. Thus, the tumultuous wedding was called off and disbanded. I'm really sorry about what happened. Just like my dad said, it's all my fault. A few days later, Jason came to apologize again after all the follow-up was taken care of. When Michael got suspended for covering for me, and when you took me in even though I was suspected of embezzlement, I've always been saved by you. Yet, I never properly explained to my partner about Michael, in my own words. Yeah. I consider you the most trustworthy person in the world, so I just assumed that anyone I'd be with would naturally trust you as much. I guess I was taking things for granted. Yeah. Just because we're in a boss-employee relationship at work. Yeah, that was me being complacent too. In Emily's case, it was a different issue, though. I was nodding along as Jason spoke. After the wedding, it seems Jason had talked things over with Emily, explaining the past. But Emily, who values educational background and social status, didn't understand Jason's feelings. A high school dropout is only good for being used to some advantage. From now on, you should just use Jason as you see fit. Hearing Emily's values and realizing she couldn't accept his best friend, meaning me, being made into a portrait at his happiest occasion, Jason decided it was impossible to stay with her. Their completed marriage registration was never submitted and ended up being discarded. The reason Frank and Jason feel indebted to me goes back to our high school days. Jason was a promising player, scouted as the ace of the baseball team. One day, as I, a non-athletic club member, happened to pass by the sports club's building, I saw Jason cleaning up alone. Even as an ace, he was still a freshman, and his seniors, jealous of his abilities, had burdened him with laborious tasks as a form of harassment. Hearing he still had to carry equipment back to the clubroom despite being exhausted, I decided to help. But as we passed by another clubroom, we could smell cigarette smoke. The door of that clubroom was open, and the students inside noticed us and came out. Then we heard footsteps. It was a teacher on patrol. I instinctively pushed Jason aside and hid him in the next empty clubroom. Michael. Although we had done nothing wrong, just being there could be problematic, risking Jason's future and his ability to play in matches and tournaments. My decision turned out to be right. Thanks to other students' testimonies, it was proven that I wasn't smoking. However, just for being there, I was suspended for a week. The fact that Jason, hidden in the clubroom, wasn't noticed by the teacher was the only saving grace. My family is well known in the region, holding local influence as a distinguished household. My father, the head of the family, is strict and intolerant of any scandal, no matter how minor. Being the talentless third son, I was quickly written off. After my suspension, I was told my tuition wouldn't be paid anymore, leaving me no choice but to drop out. Unemployment wasn't an option at home, so I moved to New York, thinking there might be job opportunities. I also had an uncle in New York who might introduce me to a job, which was another reason for my move. In the end, I didn't ask for his help, but I think things turned out for the best. After working various part-time jobs, I had a life-changing encounter. I was lucky to meet President Thompson, a well-connected manual. He saw potential in me as a young, research-oriented individual and introduced me to many people. Meeting good people and gaining knowledge and experience, I eventually went independent and started my own business. Thanks to that, my company got on track. And then, 2 years ago, Jason, who should have been leading a successful life in a top company, appeared before me, looking worn out. Upon asking, I learned he had been struggling with continuous failures since being assigned to an unfamiliar accounting department. Eventually, he was made the scapegoat for a significant unaccounted sum. A team was formed to scrutinize the matter, and it was proven that he wasn't involved in any forged orders or fraudulent expense claims. However, he was still held responsible for the loophole created in the accounting department due to his presence and faced disciplinary action, making his work environment unbearable. He was transferred to another department, but his prospects for promotion were ruined. I invited him to join my company. Jason shows exceptional talent in physical activities, but his clumsiness becomes apparent when it comes to detailed tasks. This was the reason he didn't take over from Frank. Despite his clumsiness with detailed tasks, Jason has a cheerful and honest personality, serves as a mood maker, and possesses a perseverance to see through tasks he's committed to. I took Jason's character into account when deciding to welcome him aboard. By this time, my company had become well known, and Jason was eager to make the career switch. I don't recall ever providing life-changing assistance, but Frank, being old-fashioned, was troubled that his son's downfall was linked to the son of the household he worked for. Trying to stop him from confronting the school about it has now become a fond memory. It was the same on the day I left for New York. Jason came to see me off, continuously apologizing, so I told him, "If you feel you owe me, then keep playing baseball and do your best. Don't get injured. Stay healthy." Jason tearfully nodded in agreement, and true to his promise, he continued playing baseball without major injuries until college. Jason's and my lives are intertwined. But the bond, like that of brothers, remains strong despite the distance, and it's not just Jason who has benefited, as Frank suggests. Given my estranged status from my family, Jason is like the only family I have. Moreover, since Jason joined our company, his influence has made the sales department more vibrant and united. Correspondingly, our performance has been gradually improving. When Jason was feeling down, I made it a point to talk about his strengths and how much I rely on him. Being straightforward, like father like son, he finally smiled broadly and nodded when I said, "Let's continue working together." "Yeah, but I'd like to have a say the next time you get engaged. You might not want to hear this from a bachelor, but I believe I have a good eye for people." With a laugh, Jason looked surprised at first but then laughed out loud. I believe this incident brought us even closer together.